In this video, we're going to talk about some of the formulas and equations that you can use in Google Sheets. These might feel a little intimidating at first, but trust me, they will save you a lot of time and a lot of work in the long run. So let's take a look. Within each cell, Google Sheets gives you a lot of options in terms of the functions and formulas that you can use to analyze data. And we're going to walk through a few of them really quickly in this video. The first thing that I want to talk about is sum. So if we want to add up all of the values in a given row or in a given column, we can use the sum function. Anytime that we want to use a function, we start off by clicking on the cell using the equal sign, and then we'll begin typing in the formula that we want to use. But you can see Google Sheets actually automatically gives you suggestions based on what you've done in the past, and they've already suggested to use the sum function. So I'm just going to click on that suggestion, and you can see it is highlighting what values it's summing, and then we'll press enter. And so now we can see all of the different activities that class number 1 did. So in a given week, class number 1 participated in 64 exercise activities. We can do the same thing in the cell below. I'm going to do it the other way now. So we can click equals. Instead of clicking the suggestion, I'm going to type in sum. I'm going to open a parenthesis. And now I'm going to select the cells that I want to sum. So I'm going to click and drag for class 2. And then I'm going to hit enter. So we can see that class 2 participated in 62 activities this week. Now, if we want to calculate the sum for class 3, we actually have a lot of different options. We can do it the same way we did it above, either by clicking equals, selecting the suggestion, by typing in sum and selecting the data, or we can also just copy the formula from class 1 or class 2. So now, if we click on this cell and select copy, so I'm going to hit Command C because I'm on a Mac. On a PC it would be Control C. And now I'm going to paste it down here. It actually will copy and paste the sum, but it will adjust it for the new cells. So here, when we click on the sum for class 1, we can see the formula in the formula bar. It is going from B4 to E4, so B4 to E4. In class 3, if we click on the formula, we see it's going from B6 to E6. Another option that we have, I'm going to delete both of these formulas. If we click on this first cell, we can also see there's a little square in the bottom right corner. This allows us to drag the formula across multiple cells. So if I click on that little square and I drag it down, it will drag the formula across each of the cells, and it's adjusting the formula based on the row it's in. So as we go down rows, it is adjusting the formula appropriately. We can continue this as far as we want. In this case, we only have 3 rows of data, but if we had about 15 rows of data, we could drag it down, and it will continue to drag the formula down as we go. In each of these cases, you can see the formula in the formula bar. So I'm going to change the color of this to, let's say, light green. And I'm actually going to change the color of all of these to light green as we do different formulas. Another common formula will be an average. In order to do an average, we can type in equals, and it actually is already guessing that it's average based on the title of the column. So we can click on that, but you can see it is guessing that we're actually averaging all the way over, including the sum, which is not what we want to do. We want to do the average for just the activities. So instead of taking that selection, I'm going to delete it back here. So we have equals average, open parenthesis, and then I'm going to click on the cells that we want to include. And so now we can see the average number of activities for sports, dancing, walking, and running was 16 in class 1. I'm going to click and drag these down now, and we can see the average for each of the different classes. Another thing that you can do when you're working in sheets is you can actually come up with your own equations that are not necessarily functions like sum or average. So let's say that we wanted to know what the total of walking and running was. So we can make a column that says walking plus running. I'm going to widen this column a little bit to fit the words. Now, in the cell, we can select equals, and then we can click on the cell that we want to work with. So we're going to work with walking. Now we can type plus, and we can click on the cell for running. Now when we hit enter, this cell will automatically add up those two cells. So now we know for class 1, the students walked or ran 24 times over the course of the week. And then we can carry this formula down into the other cells, and it will do the same thing for class 2 and class 3. So in class 2, they walked and ran 30 times. For class 3, they walked and ran 24 times as well. Now let's say that we want to do some calculations based on the individual number of students in each class. Let's add a column called students. Let's say in class 1 there are 21 students, in class 2 there are 25 students, and in class 3 there are 15 students. Now, if we want to calculate the average number of activities that each student did, so we'll say average per student, we can enter the formula equals, click on the sum, divide, which will use the slash, by the number of students. And now we click enter. Now you can see we have some long decimal points here. If we want to change that to a shorter number of decimal points, we can click on the cell, format, number, and we'll just select basic number, which will give us 2 decimal places. If we wanted to do something more complicated, we would go down to more formats, but we're not going to worry about that. So we're going to select number, and we have it at 3.05 activities per student. So let's drag that formula down, and it will copy it for each of the other classes. So you can see we have a problem though. We went so far to the right that we actually lost track of our first column. So if we scroll back, we can see column A, but we lose sight of our average per student. One thing that you can do to compensate for this is you can go to View, Freeze, and choose to freeze the first column. What this means now is as we scroll over to the right, that first column stays there. This is really helpful for headers. You can do the same thing for rows. So View, Freeze, one row. So that will freeze just the top row, which is not very helpful in our case. You can freeze the top 2 rows, which again would not be very helpful. And the third option, you can freeze up to the row that you're currently selected in. In our case, our headers are in the 3rd row, so we'll View, Freeze, up to current row. Now, if we had a lot of information, our headers will stay there at all times. So those are the only formulas that we're going to work out specifically in this particular video, but there are a bunch of other formulas that you can work with. And if you're ever looking for a specific operation, you can always hit equals, and then you can just start typing what you want to do. So you can do, for example, a minimum, which in this case is min. You can do a max, which will give you the maximum value. And there are countless other functions that are out there. So if you're ever trying to do something, there's a pretty good chance if you just search for it on Google or just start typing the function into the cell, you'll probably be able to find something that will work for what you're trying to do.